Right, so yeah, coming off a unfortunate loss versus G2 in the upper bracket, how, in your opinion, and watching the games backstage and obviously talking to the team afterwards, what went wrong in this G2 series?
Lots of things, unfortunately, right? Lots of things that, again, as I think I said it before after week 3, reflect of our practice. Atakan being, of course, the one big, easy to look at target in that regard, but also our fight selection was iffy. Not really realizing what comp wants to be aggressive, which one not. Because, for example, in game 1, we take a fight 5k up after objective where we flash into them, into their Swain ult, and we lose the fight. And the second game, while we have champs that want to fight like this, we sometimes use our spells a bit to lose, and then we don't have nothing to fight with. So in that regard, really sad. Also game 1 and G2 will say the same thing, because I think both teams should agree gameplay was pretty bronze from both sides, which I'm not sure if it's also the occasion, right? For us so far, every game has been really smooth. Game 1 was unplayable draft for sure, and the game was lost in 10 minutes. So it didn't feel like a hurdle, let's say. So we had 10 games actually in a row where the game felt pretty smooth all the time. There was rarely a contest that we couldn't take. So it's also another wake-up call in a way that on stage games can be hard, and the guys haven't been in the situation for many, many months, right? It's still winter and they haven't played since Worlds, most of them. So it's a new experience. And yeah, lots of gameplay stuff that went wrong. Of course, no one is happy. But we will take this as usual with a positive outlook and try to learn from the experience today.
What was the feeling like after the game, emotionally?
I think the feeling was fine in a way that we knew it's not going to be easy. I think everybody knew we can win, we can also lose. Of course, 2-0 is a bit harsh. I don't think anybody thought we would lose both games in a row, but I think the feeling was more disappointed in their own play, and also individual mistakes were plenty in this series. So I think everybody was just really angry at themselves. I don't think there was any negative feelings towards the team. It just everybody took responsibility and basically vowed to not make it happen again. So yeah, again, I think it showed last week in practice as well. I think that we got a bit too comfortable, and coaching staff was not happy with how we approached certain days. We had very hard talks that usually happen in a team towards summer, so I'm happy about that we got them out in winter already. So it's not like we had like the perfect practice going in and we felt like the kings of the world. We had struggles. We're currently working through them, and I think just the G2 loss will in the end help us to grow into a better team, for sure.
And there was also a small situation with Upset. Well, can you just elaborate a little bit on that? Shed some light?
Yeah, Upset yesterday complained during the day that he didn't feel that great. He still was part of the team dinner. Complained a bit of a headache there, went home and then wrote at 10 p.m. that he's like high fever, can't really sleep. He wasn't responsive today until midday. We weren't really sure if he can play even. We already were preparing for Grabbz to play, to sub in, but then he came and he could play under painkillers. Of course it wasn't the 100% Upset, right, that we are used to, but also we don't want to use this as an excuse. If one player doesn't feel great, the other 4 have the responsibility of stepping up, and apparently we didn't do it enough today. So while it wasn't the greatest setup to play, we will not use it as an excuse that we lost 2-0. Like, we have to be able to carry a teammate if he doesn't feel great. Unfortunate timing, but that's part of the sport as well.
In your opinion, how did we play against Team Heretics, and what was the biggest difference between that match and today's match?
What's the biggest difference? I mean, game 1 was also a stomp, like it should be against the Heretics. Game 2 was a bit harder, fell a bit behind, and we stabilized. The difference was that in that game we could stabilize and have a comp that functions better towards the end in game 2. Against G2 though, our comp kind of had to play mid-game good, because we have many champs that want to make a reset, like Jinx and Ahri. But of course, a Sivir, Lulu, Azir comp will outscale you at some point. And so that was a big difference, right? Even though we made mistakes against Heretics, we had a comp that allows us to stabilize. Here it wasn't the case. And then the game kind of felt hopeless after the Atakan fight, just because the compositions are so one-sided. We could have made a better use of Warwick not having TP. I think the entire game we kind of missed opportunities there. But then again, that's also learning, right? I think TP play is something that we're not doing great currently. And this is just another showcase of why it's so important that we put a bigger focus on that as a team.
Do you think that our first two officials with Fearless Draft went okay, draft-wise?
I would say so. I think from our own priorities, we got what we wanted in most games. Of course, for example, today also G2 got what they wanted, right? We're really aware. And then in hindsight, you can always say, what if you contest this pick a bit differently? But I think both teams in both games had a clear winning condition that he could abuse. And then, of course, the discussion becomes, is scaling just better in these games, like in game 2 today? Which I don't necessarily think so. You just have to be good with the comp you have. Some practice, Fearless currently, we just have 2 blocks every games and then reset after the first block. Like we do on stage, like a best of 3 basically. And just the difference is that basically, of course, your Scrim partners contest picks way different than your stage enemies, opponents, not enemies. Which also means that it's really hard to prepare for the second and third game, which didn't happen for us. But just like make a picture, for example, if you have for each role, you make a list of 2 to 4 champs you think are S tier. Depending on the configuration, which ones are picked, they're up to like 20,000 different cases that can happen, just mathematically, right? And so it's always kind of impossible to predict really what happens in game 2. And you just have to like stick to your ideals, stick to what you think is good, and then just play the game. If you look at Asia, for example, you can see that by games 4 or 5, there are many pocket picks, many picks that don't really make sense in the comp necessarily. And the players just play with the confidence that they're good players, right? And they can operate as champion. So I think next week we're gonna start doing the best of 5 practice a bit more to also expand just confidence in certain picks. And yeah, I'm a big fan of the entire system, even though of course we didn't have a third game yet. So it's not really that much impact so far for us.
Can you leak how game 3s have gone in kind of scrims and what kind of, have there been some crazy games with crazy champions picked?
I wouldn't say anything crazy. Of course, champions that wouldn't appear in normal drafts do appear. Especially in solo lanes, they can be a bit more creative about the counter picks. But I wouldn't say that in 3 games something crazy will happen for sure. I think game 4 and 5 is where the real chaos comes in, but we haven't practiced there yet, which is something we'll do for next week to be ready. But yeah, I don't think that the first 3 games should be impacted too much. You will always get like a S-tier composition if you really want to. So yeah.
Is there a change to the approach moving into the latter half of the playoffs?
Not a change to the approach, but a change to the practice goals basically, because we, again, today I think both teams didn't play their best and we just did more mistakes. And it's plenty of mistakes, so we're not gonna try to fix them all at the same time, because then you don't actually focus on the important things, right? So we're gonna sit down as a team, rewatch the games, and then identify 2 or 3 bigger problems that we have and really focus on them without also though overcorrecting, because again, game 1 is a game by all means we should have closed out. And then suddenly you would be in a different story, right? Not everything is bad. We have glaring issues, we're aware of them. Don't worry about that. We're not gonna lie to ourselves about our level of play. Today it wasn't great. Against Heretics game 2 it wasn't great. But we have already a good idea of what needs to be fixed and how we should approach it. And that's what we're gonna do with the best effort we can put.
So it'll be either BDS or Vitality next. Which team do you think will come through to play us?
I think Vitality will win, which is also the harder opponent for us in a way, because their game's just chaotic. While BDS plays a lot more slow and standard, which I think we're just better players, a better team, and then I don't think they really have a win condition against us. Vitality can coin flip certain situations, so it's really important that we play stable and really make sure that we don't skip steps, because then they can TP in, they can flank us. I'm not worried about either, to be honest. So we're not gonna really focus on them necessarily in a way where, again, it's about our mistakes we do, right? That we did plenty. So more focused on ourselves, and then if we play good, we should beat both teams quite comfortably. I mean, already I saw Twitter, and of course, lots of you guys are rightfully disappointed. I don't mind. It's good to see that the passion you have. Just as a reminder, though, of course, refrain from targeting players as a person. if you do it with me, I don't care. I'm old enough in the scene and I realize how it goes. But criticize your play, criticize your drafts, say worst case like you're a bad player, but refrain from targeting people as the person they are. And besides that, we know there's a lot of support from you guys still, and we are still very confident that we can celebrate together on the 3rd of March.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for the first time in a very long time, big shout out to the Fnatic Dragons and all the other Fnatic fans in there, because they were very loud tonight.
So thanks for you guys. Even more it hurts then that you guys had to leave after such a performance, right? We're sorry about that. But then again, all we can do is just move forward together as Fnatic and fans, and then hopefully celebrate in the future.